Obviously, the Leafs has some things percolating on the trade front. I know Anthony DeMarco yesterday from the fourth period put out something again about Rasmus Ristolainen. Obviously, Anthony covers the Philadelphia Flyers on a daily basis. 3 years left at $5.1 million after this season, but he's a right-handed shooting defenseman, had high pedigree with the Buffalo Sabres a couple years back. The numbers have not been great with Philadelphia, but you could tell what they're looking for because this guy plays like that rough brand style, but I'd be very, very cautious with a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen. Would you go after him?
Oh man, I haven't had a chance to watch him that thoroughly to have a strong opinion, but those right-handed defensemen are always so sought after. And anyone that plays with a little bit of jam is very welcome on this roster, if you ask me. You talk to Witt as well, very opinionated, knows exactly what he's talking about. And then when it's time to say, hey, what do you give up at the deadline here for the Maple Leafs? He's like, it's hard to say. It's tough to, it's going to be difficult. And I imagine Tree's going to have, some options on his table that are not going to be easy. And, it'll be tough to say, if we do this, here's the risk. If we do that, here's the risk. And like Witt said, in this market, if you just sit on your hands and it doesn't go well, you're going to get crucified. And bottom line is you're probably going to get crucified no matter what happens if it doesn't lead to like at least a conference final. And it's a difficult spot to be. I don't claim to want that job. I don't know what you give up for who. I don't know what the missing piece or pieces of this puzzle is to get this group going. I just know that it does feel like they're underachieving. It honestly, expectations are higher. If all 20 of those guys that are playing night to night go balls out, I feel like there's, with a commitment to the team first, not individual play, you'd think there'd be, enough on there to be in a better position than they are right now. But you could say they're too one-dimensional, they're too lean on the back end, all these different things. It's really tough, man. You want to fix the problems that you see with this team, but at what bloody cost? And nothing's free in this league. And it's a tough spot to be in for Tree Living, man. I don't even know myself what I'm screaming at him to do. I would like a Chris Tanev for sure. I think that's number one. But if he, like Witt says, everyone's clamoring over this guy. You think we're the only guy in the market? You think we're just going to decide whether we want him or not? We might be able to throw the kitchen sink at him and still not get him. So you got to prepare for that as well. And at the end of the day, we're not the general manager. The guys in the locker room aren't the general manager. Sometimes you shut that out, let that take care of itself, and you focus on what you can control. And that's how you approach games like the one coming up against the Ottawa Senators.
Another name that's sort of been out there is Colton Parayko with the St. Louis Blues, but sort of getting back to Rasmus Ristolainen, I think he's an interesting name, obviously, with the pedigree earlier on in his career, but I just don't know if I could go near 3 years and 5.1 mil, especially when you have guys to pay. You have to figure out the Mitch Marner situation. I think you want to give yourself as much flexibility this summer if you're Brad Tree Living to mold the roster how you see fit. And let's say you bring in a Ristolainen and he's a really bad fit, and who knows how that trade or potential trade of that substance would work out. Then you put yourself in a bind, and it's like John Klingberg all over again. But the problem is you got 3 years left at 5.1. I just don't think now's the time. And I understand it, like every name sort of in that conversation of that threshold, if you will, of like a Ristolainen and a Parayko is going to be attached to the Leafs over the next 5 weeks. But I'm just curious to see, A, if they'll bite, and B, like what kind of player. Will it be a rental? Will it be somebody with term? I think it's quite clear, at least and definitive, they are looking everywhere for upgrades on the blue line. Doesn't matter who you are, where you play.
Yeah, I would think so. And that's the thing. Like, is it better to get a guy with some terms? So you're like, well, at least we have him to work with for the next couple of years. Or do you get a rental where if it doesn't work out, a flash of a couple of quick months and it's over and you've got screw all and you gave up what? And you're in a worse position than we are today. So it's difficult, man. No one, a lot of it's rolling the dice. You don't know how guys are going to perform. You don't know what's going to gel with the team. You don't know how these draft picks and how these prospects are going to develop and what they turn into. Leafs are fairly famous for having guys leave the potential organization and then go on to flourish, and you just stand there and watch their careers saying,
what?
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
But I think anyone can say that. It's just under the microscope more in Toronto, obviously. But yeah, man, an interesting time of year. I really think Tanev could help out the back end. Um, I think that first rounder is probably going to have to be on the table, or else one of the guys that we don't want to unload. Like, what do you think we're going to have to give for him? It's not free. You have to give up one of your assets. So if that's what you need, you got to kind of go out there and get them and say, well, this is what we needed, and that's your justification right there. This is what we needed. So are we playing hockey or are we not? Are we trying or are we not? Are we getting better or are we not? Or are we just going to be too scared and say, well, maybe not this year? Well, fuck. Time is now. I think you got to make a move, try to make your team better. And if you lock Tanev up afterwards because it's working out, then even better.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.